Anthropic is months away from a reported stock market debut. And it just asked the government to regulate it harder. Not lighter. Harder. This week it urged state after state to stack more AI laws on top of the ones already in force, at the exact moment its biggest rival, OpenAI, was begging Washington to sweep those same state laws away. Everything you assume about companies hating regulation gets flipped here. This was never just about safety, it's one of the coldest competitive moves of the year. One rule for reading a day like this. In an oligopoly, a market with a handful of giant players, no move is ever just a move. Every announcement forces an answer. But smart rivals don't answer on your board. They answer on the board where they're strongest. And Thursday the AI industry played 3 boards at once. The rules board in Washington, the robot board in Tokyo, and the money board in Taipei. OpenAI's move came first and it set the terms. The company is pushing Washington for a single federal AI standard. One rulebook that would override or preempt the state laws stacking up in California, New York, and Illinois. Its policy chief described the approach to the Hill as building a de facto national framework out of a handful of major bills, and called it a form of reverse federalism. Translation: pick the rules once and freeze them. Why now? Because nothing scares a pre-IPO company like 50 different compliance regimes, and OpenAI is reportedly heading toward a public listing later this year. Under the Illinois law now on the books, frontier developers earning over $500 million a year must publish safety frameworks, submit to independent audits every single year, and report critical incidents within 72 hours. Multiply that by every state house in America, and you see why OpenAI wants 1 referee instead of 50.
Anthropic's answer landed in the same news cycle, and went the opposite way. Instead of asking for fewer rulebooks, Anthropic endorsed more of them. California's Frontier Model Law, New York's RAISE Act, that Illinois audit law, and now a transparency measure in Massachusetts. Sit with how strange that looks. A company racing toward its own stock market debut, with bankers reportedly lining up investor meetings, is volunteering for stricter regulation. Nobody volunteers for extra homework, unless the homework is a weapon. And that's exactly what it is. Anthropic's internal safety process, its responsible scaling policy, already meets most of what these state laws demand. So every new state requirement costs Anthropic almost nothing, and costs everyone who hasn't built that machinery a great deal. In business school terms, a compliance moat. Raise a bar you already clear, and watch your rivals pay to catch up. Regulation stops being a burden, and becomes a barrier to entry. So hold both pictures in your head. 2 labs, both reportedly heading for public listings, both talking about safety, one begging Washington for a single lighter rulebook, the other cheering state houses on as they pile up heavier ones. Both positions are sincere, I'm sure. Both also happen to line up perfectly with each company's margins. In this industry, safety policy is never just safety policy. It's pricing strategy wearing a lab coat. But the sharpest answer didn't come from a lab at all. It came from the company both of those labs depend on, and are quietly trying to outgrow. While OpenAI and Anthropic fought over American rulebooks, Jensen Huang was 13 time zones away, standing next to the men who run Japan's industrial robot empire. And what he announced there tells you exactly where Nvidia thinks the next decade of this war will be fought. The announcement came at a Tokyo event Wednesday night on the US East Coast. Nvidia unveiled Cosmos 3 Edge, a so-called world model built to help robots and vision systems perceive and navigate physical spaces in real time. Alongside it came a wall of partnerships: Fujitsu, Fanuc, Yaskawa Electric, Kawasaki Heavy Industries, the companies that build the arms and hands of the world's factories. Nvidia calls the category physical AI, machines that reason about the real world, not just text. Why is that an answer to OpenAI? Follow the incentives. Both big labs have spent this year working to cut their dependence on Nvidia's chips, designing custom silicon, courting other manufacturers. If your biggest customers are building exits, you build a market they can't follow you into. Chatbots run on software, robots run on factories, safety certifications, and 30-year industrial relationships. OpenAI can train a model in a data center. It cannot conjure Fanuc's installed base of machines. Japan is the perfect board for that play. Fanuc and Yaskawa are among the largest industrial robot makers on the planet. Kawasaki Heavy builds everything from robots to ships. Wire your chips and world models into that ecosystem, and Japan's manufacturing dominance becomes your distribution channel. Nvidia goes from component supplier to the operating system of physical industry. That's not answering OpenAI's move. That's refusing to play on OpenAI's board altogether. Then, before Thursday's opening bell in New York, the third board lit up.
the money board. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the market took what should have been the best news of the week and treated it like a threat. Early Thursday morning, Eastern Time, TSMC, the Taiwanese foundry that physically manufactures the advanced chips behind Nvidia, and by extension behind OpenAI's and Anthropic's models, reported second quarter earnings. And on paper, the numbers were spectacular. Revenue, $40.2 billion for the quarter. Net profit, up 77% from a year earlier, to roughly $22 billion. Earnings per share, $4.31 against estimates of $3.80, a comfortable beat. This is the company that gets paid no matter which AI lab wins, and business has never been better. A record quarter, from the one true toll booth of the entire industry. So naturally, the stock fell about 4%. Wall Street's way of saying thank you. The trigger was one line in the guidance. TSMC raised its capital spending plan for the year to between $60 and $64 billion, up from a range that topped out at $56 billion. For perspective on $60+ billion, adjusted for inflation, the entire Manhattan project cost around $30 billion in today's dollars. TSMC now intends to spend roughly $2 of those, every single year, on factories. Investors looked at that number and asked the uncomfortable question: who ultimately pays for it? The answer rippled through every AI stock on the board. Nvidia slipped around 2% on the day. Broadcom fell about 5%. Micron dropped roughly 6%. And in sole trading, overnight for us, memory maker SK Hynix sank around 14%. The Nasdaq gave up about 1.5% by Thursday's close. Analysts called it a beat and worry reaction. Record results, punished anyway, because heavier spending today means thinner margins and slower cash returns tomorrow. Notice what the market is actually pricing. Nobody questioned demand. TSMC's problem is that demand is so strong it has to build capacity at a historic pace. The fear is the arms race itself. OpenAI's next model, Anthropic's next cluster, Nvidia's next platform all require someone somewhere to pour concrete and buy machines first. Capital spending is the tax every player pays on this war, and Thursday shareholders got the bill and flinched. Restraint in this market is nobody's strategy, so score the day. OpenAI moved in Washington and immediately hit resistance. Not from regulators, but from a rival that wants tougher rules on purpose. Nvidia answered by opening a board in Tokyo that no software lab can easily reach. And the market answered everyone, marking down the whole supply chain even on record results. If you're keeping a scoreboard, the quiet winner is optionality. The players with more boards to play on, Nvidia with robots, Anthropic with its compliance moat, gained ground without shipping a single new chatbot. Which brings me back to the demand I promised you. In its policy push, Anthropic put it in writing. Congress should not preempt state AI laws unless it passes a federal law at least as strong as the framework Anthropic itself is proposing. Read that again. A challenger, months from a reported listing, is daring Washington to regulate harder, because it already clears the bar. Scared companies ask for exemptions. Confident ones ask for higher fences. That sentence, more than any stock move on Thursday, tells you who believes they're built to last. And the board resets fast. Google is expected to ship its rebuilt Gemini 3.5 Pro as soon as tomorrow, after reportedly scrapping the original version and starting over. So every answer you just watched may get answered again. If this helped you see the moves behind the headlines, hit like so it reaches more people, subscribe for the next play-by-play, and tell me in the comments. Whose board would you rather hold? The rules, the robots, or the money? And share this with one friend who owns Nvidia stock. See you tomorrow. Hope you got something out of this. Hit subscribe for more in this lane, and we'll see you in the next one.